start. Jai Jinendra, everyone.
Jai Jinendra.
And generally, as in Jito, we start any function or a conference with Naukar Mantra. I would request all of you to kindly recite Naukar Mantra. You can have it your own. Jai Jinendra. So we are having this second, conference webinar of JPF during this COVID-19 period, and we have amongst us our speaker today, Mr. Soumya Kanti Ghosh. With us, there are JPF office bearers also, and Indore chapter office bearers also, and a lot of Jito members from all over the country are there in this webinar where they will be enriched with the knowledge of Mr. Ghosh. So we have Shri Kamlesh Sojatia with us, who is the Director Apex and Secretary of Jito Apex. We have Ravi Jain, who is the Director in charge JPF from the Apex. We have Shri Ajay Boraji, who is the Vice Chairman of JPF Apex. We have Nagoriji, who is the Chairman of Indore Jito chapter. With us, we have Nitin Dafriya. With us, we have Nitin Dafriya is the Indore chapter coordinator, convener for this event. And Akash Jain is the, as I told you, the National Youth Wing Secretary of Jito from Nasik. He is assisting us in all this technical help for the Zoom seminar. With this few words, may I request our director in charge, Ravi Jain, to kindly welcome the participants. Ravi.
Good morning, everyone. I, Ravi Jain, Director in charge of Jito Professional Forum, welcome our guest speaker, Sri Soumya Kanti Ghosh, State Bank of India Group Chief Economic Advisor, and dignitaries from Jito Indore team, dignitaries from Jito Professional Forum, and all participants. I am sure this event will be very informative to all of us and provide us with lot of optimism. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ravi. Can I now request Shri Ajay Bora to say a few words about JPF, please?
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone. BC used to be before Christ and AC used to be after Christ. However, with the pandemic, the corona pandemic, the world can be gradually will be re-christianed as before corona and after corona. Now, when we look at that scenario, given the tsunami on the health front as well as on the economic front, one realizes that knowledge is power. Knowledge can be the best weapon, and knowledge can be the best tool to deal with these global uncertainties. Given this background and the context that knowledge needs to be unlearned and relearned, Jito has formed Jito Professional Forum, which is an exclusive vertical meant for the doctors, lawyers, banking and finance professionals, architects and salaried executives. Now, it's inevitable for any business person or any business house to engage with professionals across when they try to reinvent their businesses and when they try to realign their business models. And that's exactly what Jito Professional Forum brings in. We have a lot of experts on the healthcare field, banking and finance professional like the session today. We have legal fraternity who can come in and advise on force majeure and various other clauses. In all, we supplement Jito business people and a platform to engage Jito community at large and Jito membership at large with the global Jain professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay ji. May I now request Shri Bhagwat Nagori ji, the chairman of Jito Indore chapter, to welcome the members as well as to introduce our speaker this morning. Nagori ji. Yeah, Nagori ji.
He's on mute. I just unmute him.
Yeah, please unmute Nagori ji. Nagori ji.
Just a second, I think. It's taking a bit longer.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Nagori uncle,
Okay,
I
if
think
it
he's
is,
trying to logging in again.
Okay. Okay. Can I, in order to, not to waste too much of time,
नितिन जी से
as
करवा दो
time is very precious.
नितिन टपरिया जी से
So, if Nitin can introduce, Nitin, are you there?
तो स्टार्ट
Nitin, are you there?
हाँ
I'm there. I'm very much there.
Can you
I'm very much there.
introduce Mr. Soumyakanti Ghosh?
But let Nagori ji come na. We can take it after.
No,
In the
anyway,
meantime-
we don't want to waste time now. We will
yeah,
come
yeah.
for welcome maybe later.
yeah
So, if you
Almira
have
ji, you
any
do it.
introduction, you let me know.
Almira ji,
Nitin
you
ji.
do it. Then you do it.
Oh, okay. In
I
fact,
do.
I don't have any this thing. Mr. Soumyakanti
Yes.
Ghosh is a very well-known senior most economist in the country, and he is the chief group economic advisor of the largest bank of the country, the State Bank of India. By qualification, he is very, very highly qualified person. His interaction with the RBI, regulators, government is there on the daily basis on the various economic issues. He contributes a lot of his articles and his thought process through the media and through either print media or electronic media to all the people. He has been an author of several very good articles in very good journals, and very well connected person, has in-depth knowledge of not only the Indian economy, but he also tracks the global economy. So with this, can I request Mr. Ghosh to kindly start his talk today on the impact of COVID-19 onto the total economy, Indian economy mainly, and to also to have the impact on the global economy, and what kind of stimulus the government of India has announced along with the RBI, and how it are going to benefit to the people in the country, and what are his suggestions to come out of this problem economically, commercially, industrially, and business-wise. So, Mr. Ghosh, please.
Yeah, good morning. I'll just take a couple of minutes, maybe around 15-20 minutes, to say you what is the status of the current economy, and then we can have a discussion. The important thing is that I'll talk a little bit about the global economy. I'll talk a little bit about the Indian economy and what is the impact and where do we stand. The first thing is that if you talk about the global economy, if we just take the April 2nd data, or the data is actually available, so I don't want to get into that data. The total number of countries which are now impacted is 212, and the population infected is now close to 20 lakh crore, 20 lakh. And the deaths is actually now 1 lakh, around 1,11,000. Recovery is around 4,12,000. So the population, in fact, so basically so the population is basically significantly on the higher side, and that is the problem. The problem, however, is that most of the death rates which are happening is because of the comorbidity. And if you actually look into the death rates of all cases, for example, with a person with a cardiovascular disease, that death rate is around 13.2%. Diabetes, respiratory and other things are also higher. And interestingly, in the Indian context, the death rate is higher than the global average, particularly in Maharashtra, which has seen significant number of deaths. Now, what is going to be the impact? Basically, the global economic outlook looks very gloomy. The decline in output could be as much as 3%, which the IMF is predicting in this year. It will be even higher than the global financial crisis of 1.7%. And given that the size of the global economy is 84 trillion, 3% drop could actually mean that India, and with India's share of 3.5%, that means India could actually share, because of the global impact, around 6 to 7 lakh crores to its GDP. I'm not even talking about the domestic impact. And commodity prices have dropped by 37%. FDI is expected to drop by 30 to 40%. And there are several uncertainties in the current scenario. Now, how big is the problem? I think the problem is actually very big. every other country, if you look into Australia, Japan, Korea, France, India, everybody has given monetary and fiscal stimulus. But in the Indian context, I think the package as of now has been significantly inadequate. And if we just do a proper graph, I can actually share one of the graphs after the presentation. If you just do a proper graph of a stringency index in terms of the administrative measures which a country has taken and the fiscal and monetary measures on two axes, you will find that India stringency index is maximum. But in terms of the fiscal and monetary policy, still we have done something. But in the fiscal policy, with a per capita income of $2,000, I think we have done least in terms of a fiscal package. And now the question is basically not of an incremental package, not of waiting day by day, because every day is a challenge for the business and the industry. So the quickly we don't do it, the quickly the economy will actually get into oblivion. So that is the problem. And the unfortunate thing is that India fiscal, I mean, the India's part, the Australia, for example, Australia is the package is 10% of GDP, Japan is 20% of GDP, and these countries' per capita income are significantly higher than India, I think 20 to 30 times higher. So basically, the problem should not be looked into terms of how do you cut your clothes. The problem should be looked in terms of your per capita income, because that is the point which we should take into account. So this is the first thing. The second thing, in terms of the Indian economy, I mean, as you know, all the data is there, so I don't want to get into that. The number is now more than 11,000. And yesterday, the lockdown has been extended. So basically, the problem is that the important thing which I want to mention is that this crisis is different from the global financial crisis for India, and the impact actually will be much higher. Let me take a minute to explain why it is so. Because in the 2018-9 crisis, when it happened, the India's consumption story was intact. We had a share of 60% private final consumption expenditure total national income. But this time, what is happening is that we are actually foregoing social consumption. Social consumption means basically eating out or buying discretionary items, other items. So that which we are foregoing. So the problem is that if you are foregoing one, you're going out or traveling today, you cannot make up the traveling at a future date. So that's the difference between and service social consumption foregone today and tomorrow, because manufacturing sector can still make up given the packages which the government might announce, but the social sector, social consumption will not be able to make up, because what you are foregoing today, you cannot make up tomorrow in terms of increased consumption. So by that logic, so therefore the service sector is at a grave danger. And given that India's growth rate last quarter was 4.5%, if you assuming that the service sector has been going at 7% to 60% weightage, that means that the weighted contribution of service sector to total GDP is 4.2%. That means even if we assume that service sector doesn't grow this year, the growth rate actually is close to zero. It's 0.3%. So that's the extent of the problem. So therefore, the government needs to support the service sector with proper tax cut, GST ratio, whatever is the tax cut, we can discuss some of the option long after the pandemic has ended, so that the banks actually find it profitable to lend to these entities. Otherwise, we'll end up in a situation where these sectors will continue to be hit, and I hope that some sort of a package is looked into that direction. So that's the extent of the problem. Our GDP forecast for the full year was around 2.6%. We are revising the forecast today, and my sense is that the number could be actually much lower than 1%. And so that's basically the extent of the problem. I'll not be surprised if the first quarter growth rate of this year, April to June, could be actually a deep negative. It could be anywhere between 6 to 10% negative growth. The second quarter could also be negative. There could be some pickup in the third and fourth quarter, but things look pretty bleak at this point of time. The other thing is that there will be a permanent demand loss in export markets because the high death rates in USA and EU. The global supply chain will be rearranged. The remittances will fall because the crude prices, we are estimating, even the OPEC output cut will not help, and the crude prices you could actually see decline to $10 to $20 by the next 2 to 3 months. There will be a fall in inward FPI to India. the external sector or financial sector vulnerability which we have currently might actually compound the problems for the entire system. So we are actually in a pretty the precarious situation. Now, what is the output loss? These output loss numbers are actually subject to revision right now. Just before yesterday's lockdown, we are estimating that the total estimated loss could be around 9 lakh crores. This number could actually be revised upward by around 3 to 4 lakh crores after we today revise it. But out of this, the output loss is maximum in the transport and storage sector 42%, hotels 14%, trade 12%, agriculture is 5%, and education is another sector which is showing 3.6% decline. And apart from the coke and petroleum products, which is showing a 6% decline in the demand. And the total loss in labor income and capital income because of that is actually close to around 4.5 lakh crores. The labor income is basically happening because, as you know, that the India has a significantly unemployed, significantly self-employed numbers, and which are basically marginal and casual laborers, and which is basically the number could be around 2.2 to 2.3 lakh crores. That's the minimum number which we are estimating. The total capital loss could be around 2.03 lakh crores, which basically means that these losses, which will be shifted to banks, this is also part of the bankruptcy cost and fixed cost. So you can understand that the gravity of the situation is significantly on the higher side. Now, quickly, what could be the fiscal impact because of this one? I think the government has recently announced a package of around 1.7 lakh crores. But if you closely look through the package, you will find that the incremental size of the package is 73,000 crores because 1 lakh crore is from the existing budget. Now, the 73 lakh crores makes it 0.4% of GDP. Now, what could be the size of the fiscal package? Because there is a lot of debate. Let me just put you a simple maths over here. The India's nominal GDP growth rate last year unrevised was 7.8%. This year, the nominal GDP growth rate could actually decline to as low as 4%, if not lower. Even if we are assuming it is 4%, that means from 4%, if you have to bring it to the current existing 7.8 or say take it 8%, that means it 4% should be the size of the fiscal. And for every 1 lakh crores, for every 2 lakh crores, it makes 1% of GDP. So the size of the fiscal could be at least 6 to 8 lakh crores over an existing the 73,000 crore, which is 0.4% of GDP, which the government has recently announced. So this is basically the size which we are looking into in terms of at least putting the back economy into FY20 levels. We are not even talking about a 10% nominal GDP. Just get back the economy to FY20 levels. As you know, the FY20 has been also pretty bad. Now, how it can be financed? I think there is a lot of options on the table. And let me give you another number over enormity of the problem. The center borrowings, the total center borrowings this year is around 7.8 lakh crores. The state borrowing has been 6.4 lakh crores. And as you know, the states are in a precarious fiscal position. We are estimating that the consolidated fiscal deficit of the center and states could be close to 9 to 10% of GDP. And the other thing is that the net borrowing of the states and the center, net borrowing I'm talking about, is around 11 lakh crores. This net borrowing could actually rise to around 13 lakh crores. And the total gross borrowing of the center and states could be as close to 19 to 20 lakh crores this year, because the number originally was 7.8 plus 6.4. So that makes it around 13.5. So this 13.5 could easily rise by the number which I said, because the 6 or 7 lakh crores, the borrowing could be around 20 lakh crores. So what are the things which could be done to finance this deficit? I think there is a plethora of options. I will come to other things, or industrial options also. The first option is that you need to have a monetization of the deficit. There is a clear mandate in the FRBM Act which says that if the real output growth is lower by 3 percentage points than the average of the previous 4 quarters, you can actually invoke the clause of monetization of the deficit. And my sense is that this quarter's, the first quarter growth rate could be as low as -7 to -10%. So much lower than the average of the last 4 quarters of 5.3%. So first, monetary deficit. The second option, which I think is a very good option which the government can consider, is that introduce tax saving bonds. I think after 2016, there has been no introduction of these tax saving bonds, and right now is the time. And even these tax saving bonds could be actually juxtaposed with tax free deposits, because as you know, the deposits, that the deposits are basically mostly taxable in the Indian context. So even if some of the deposits are made non-taxable for a limited period of time with a lock-in period, I think that will also bring a lot amount of money. So this is the other option. The third option, which we have been suggesting also, is that every country has shown that the banks are being incentivized to lend. So you need to put in place a situation. The banks outstanding, if you look at the outstanding credit requirement last year, the bank's outstanding credit requirement is around 100 lakh crores was outstanding credit. Even if you are assuming a growth of 10%, that makes in 10 lakh crores. Now, if the banks have to achieve this 10% growth in credit, you have to ensure that the banks lend. Currently, the banks have no incentive to lend given the risk perception. So the best way is that two options: do a limited capital infusion into the public sector banks. But the second option, which is more important and which has been practiced in most other countries like Singapore, is that create a guarantee fund, maybe of the size of say 6 to 7 lakh crores, and put in the government can put guarantee that need not be put that will not go to the banks, but that will be put in separately, because the guarantee has a significant leverage amount. For example, in Singapore, the leverage amount of a guarantee fund is actually more than 50%. So if you just give a guarantee of say 30,000 crore to the government, that can leverage 20 times more than the current levels, and the banks actually can lend 6 to 7 lakh crores. So this is one of the other suggestions which is on the table. So that also the government can get into. I don't think that the oil price hike is going to solve the problem, because oil demand has completely collapsed, and now you need to increase the oil prices at multiple levels so as to generate more value from that. So either go for a monetization of the deficit, that could be on COVID bonds, and we also strongly suggest that the government should also introduce a COVID budget, so that everything is clear that this is an abnormal situation, extraordinary times calls for extraordinary challenges. So let us use this COVID budget and then use it for the purpose, and then distinguish it 2 to 3 years later. So I think there are several options, and the government should consider all options, because the amount of hit with the economy will take around 10 lakh crores. I think no amount of single-minded focus on financing is going to help you. The other measures which I'll come to that, just one second. So these are basically the ways which we can finance the deficit. What is the sector specific impact? I think the sector specific impact are basically significantly high. Currently, if you look at the all scheduled commercial banks credit card, some of the sectors which are having high risk, which is metal, power, auto, real estate, medical, educational, hospital services, textile, and power. So we did an analysis of the impact for different sectors. We found that the debt service coverage ratio could fall below 1 for many companies and below 2 on an average for sectors like travel, transport, oil and gas, basic metals, steel, auto, power, construction, implying severe financial strain. So these actually could lead to job losses, which could be 9 to 29% of the labor force. And just a small one, if you look into the credit ratio, basically the ratio of upgrades to downgrades in the second half, the CRISIL has published the data, and from the first half of the last financial year, I'll read out some numbers. And what we have done is that we have looked into the credit ratio and mapped with the COVID risk. Some of the sectors of credit ratio, you can know the automobile credit ratio right now is at only 0.16. The COVID risk is high. Hotels 0.16, very high COVID risk. Aviation 0.15, COVID risk high. Gems and jewelry credit ratio of only 0.07, COVID risk high. NBFC credit ratio 0.25, and as all of you know, COVID risk is significantly high. Power, the credit ratio is 0.7, the COVID risk is high. The real estate credit ratio is 0.12, construction and engineering is 0.15, and all these sectors have high credit risk. So basically, I am talking about 8 sectors: automobile, hotels, restaurant and leisure, aviation, gems, NBFC, power, real estate, construction. All these sectors actually face significant high COVID risk. The other sectors which face medium COVID risk is the FMCG, steel, metals, and cement, because all this will depend on how quickly I am going to revive the construction sector activity. What could be the aviation estimated job loss? we did an analysis. Basically, the total amount of job loss in hospitality could be around 0.5 million, tourism 1.2 million, retail could be 11 million, e-commerce and restaurants around 3 million, and Ola, Uber, all this that could be also around 3 million. So I think the number of jobs loss could be significant until and unless we also devise a support of a payroll package, because as you know, the government has also been very sincerely approaching that don't cut out, don't lay off people. But I think if you don't have cash flow, how do the companies are going to survive? So the best option is to think of some sort of a payroll support, whereby the companies give a payroll support for 2 days, the government gives a payroll support, you take a payroll, you take a salary cut, so that you can actually exist through this trouble, which seems to be very troubling at this point of time. Now the exports are likely to be hit. The total exports to the top 4 regions which are impacted by COVID, our exports last year was 263 million. 60% of these exports are to these impacted regions, which makes it around 155 million. So you can understand the extent of the problem. 263 billion, 155 billion is the amount of exports which you are going to, which may be impacted because of this. So that's another thing, challenge which will come from the export market. So what is the support of is needed? As we have said, they will need a direct moratorium transfer. 3-month moratorium on repayment of loan has already been done, but that has to be extended by the RBI after the 3 months ended. Fiscal stimulus has to be given through the tax cuts. As I have said, it could be GST cuts, it could be payroll support, it could be a guarantee fund, it could be anything, but it could be packaged for some of the sectors. But please come and support the sectors, and the approach should not be incremental. The approach should be straightforward so that we can actually survive. And let me tell you one more thing over here, which is very interesting, is that all history of pandemic crisis shows, if you look into the history of 1918 to 20 pandemic crisis, the heat is actually when the pandemic comes back. And if you look at the 1918-20, the total number of deaths, I think, was around 20 lakhs. We are not looking to that extent. But do you know that the maximum number of deaths came when the third wave came in? And this disease is like that, you don't have a vaccine yet, and you don't know whether it will relapse or not. It is actually relapsing in some of the countries like South Korea and even China. And so my thing is that until and unless the vaccine is discovered, which is 12 to 18 months away, you cannot continue with this lockdown, because this is not going to help. Once you lift the lockdown, and if you don't do enough testing, we'll be back to the square one and have a second round. So, and all pandemic crisis shows, so basically the only solution to this problem is that, so basically you have to make an exit from the lockdown, but we have to think of new ways of survival. So that's why a package is very important at this point of time, because even if suppose we have a fiscal constraint, obviously the fiscal deficit has gone for a toss, because there will be significant revenue and revenue loss to the government. So obviously the fiscal deficit should have even if you don't do anything. But right now is a question of survival. We are all talking about survival as of now, but the survival, as you know, of saving lives to the lockdown. But you also need to save lives of people who are not able to eat, and in the current circumstances, we have been hearing the news about across others. So that is also another trade-off. So I think no government has got it right in terms of the policy response, and it is also very difficult to understand, because it's a new type of crisis. But the only thing which the government can do is to support the economy at this point of time, and forget about this fiscal and the monetary part. Come up with a suitable package so that we are able to ride to the storm, because we are actually heading for a long winter as long as the vaccine is not paid. Some quick points which I make before I close is that what are the issues to be considered? We should not put the risk to the future, because if we just put the risk to the future in terms of not announce a moratorium, and you know the banking sector has been undergoing a crisis. 2011 it started. History of the banking crisis globally shows that the crisis has been around only of 8 to 9 years, 8 years, but we have already in the 9th year, and it could actually, the crisis could actually continue. So, so basically, the point is that don't put the risk to the future. Be proactive in terms of your policy support, because this is a long haul. And the other thing is that what could be the regulatory enablers? We can extend the 3-month forbearance norms. The relaxation of NPA norms could be done. The banks should be given adequate flexibility to restructure without taking recourse to the June 7 circular, flexible terms for cost overrun, an extension of timelines for achieving commercial production in case of infrastructure projects. However, the good thing is that I would like to also give some positive twist to this entire analysis, is that there is also a crisis to opportunity. I think the share of manufacturing could be increased in the current level. The fast track clearances should be given, technology development fund, industry roadmap, a comprehensive package for SME and MSME, whereby targeted cash subsidies can be given for further employment generation. So there are several things which could be done. Infrastructure bottlenecks, for example, removing is one of them. A dispute resolution framework could be set up. Contract laws could be modernized. Other thing, for example, take a look into the agricultural sector. Right now, the APMC markets are closed now, and this could have been the right time just to reform the agricultural sector and allow the farmers to directly sell to the panchayats. So, so these are some of the good things which the government can do in the budget. And for example, in Mumbai, if you had say allowed the Mumbai metro construction activity to continue in some form, just imagine the amount of work they could done in one day, which the work could have taken 30 days. The other reforms could be on the power sector, the DISCOM sector. Right now, it's time that we manage our powers better, because power is another sector which is going to face a lot of trouble after the COVID crisis. So, and the other thing is that as I said, the domestic savings should be channelized to infrastructure by issuing of tax-free bonds and companies. So that is the point exactly I made it. So what could be the exit strategy? We have suggested the government in terms of some of the exit strategy. We have said that please allow the agricultural sector to start. So I think there should be some guidelines today on that one. Some relaxation in inland transport could be given. I don't think the rail, but I think that is not going to be done as of now till May 3rd. Trading activity, mainly retail trade, could be allowed because that supports over 25 crore households. The hotel services, home delivery is the largest employment generator. So basically, a limited duration of opening of these services for low risk groups could be allowed. We could have a limited construction activity in districts which have no cases of the COVID, and push to the digital infrastructure sector like Arogya Setu, which actually could be a good thing. But let me end by saying that even though the government is contemplating of starting the economic activity in 350 districts, it could be more of a symbolic in nature, because if you look into the credit flow in the district which has been impacted, and which is mostly in the developed states like Maharashtra and others, Gujarat, I think more than 90% of the bank credit goes this. So therefore, even if the government starts the construction activity others in the other districts, it will be a symbolic gesture, but nevertheless, it will be an important gesture to give the message that we are slowly preparing to exit the logout in a staggered manner. Because as I said, the lockdown is not going to solve the problem, even though we have done very well in terms of containing the disease and saving lives. But saving lives of people is also important after the crisis have ended. If you look at the experience of US after the global financial crisis, there was a lot of deaths and suicides because of people who lost their homes in the mortgage crisis. So that is one thing which we should need to take into account. And the problem is how long we are going to lock up the economy, because every day lockout is costing the economy around 40 to 45,000 crore. So that's the amount of loss which we are getting, and we need to get back to normal to some sort of an activity, because this disease, because until and unless a vaccine comes, we will have to face the consequences of further rounds of waves, which we can only do by building up the health infrastructure. Let me also talk a little bit of the health infrastructure. I think out of 718 districts in India, only 218 districts have good hospitals, 500 districts don't have. In these 500 districts, even if we consider setting up 500-bed hospitals in 250 districts, that will cost you 20,000 crores in a year. So even if you set up 250 hospitals in this, out of these 500 districts, that will cost us 60,000 crores over 3 years. So I think 60,000 crores is not a big amount of money which we can put on this health infrastructure. So there are good things which we can think about the budget, but the only important thing is that we have to stay positive, because this is going to be a long haul, and the support has to come from the government and the RBI. And we are sure that with the help of a package, because I think that is most important right now, because India is, I have repeated again and again, India is lagging significantly in terms of a package, because India's per capita income is the lowest, but India's stringency index is the highest. So if we have to take a comparison of how much of the package you are giving, that is not related to the size of the cloth which you have, but that is related to the size of the cake which you have. So therefore, the per capita income is important, and we should actually concentrate on giving a package. So this much I had to say. So let's, and we will be revising our GDP forecast, but as I have said to you, the total fiscal size could be anywhere between 6 to 8 lakh crores on a conservative basis. Even we have to bring the economy back to the FY20 level, which of course at the beginning was suboptimal. So I'd like to end here and then take questions from you, whatever.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ghosh, for giving a lot of statistics, and you are very fast in talking and everything. Of course, the members must have got a lot of information from this, because what we read is only the COVID impact, and what is every news is having only news of 10,000 people, 8,000 people, or so many deaths and so many this. But here you have spoken the enormity of the problem by way of giving the various statistics. And I agree with you that the package by the government should not be this 60,000 crore or 1 lakh crore. It has to be something around 8 to 10 lakh crore or 15 lakh crore. Because as it is rightly said that you cannot make a dead man alive. If industry is finished, if business is finished, if suicide takes place, who is going to make them alive? So yes, it's a time that the government must act immediately on a major packages for the businessmen, for the industry, and for the common man. With this, we will take up few questions. Akash, you can unmute those people and ask them to ask their questions. Keep your questions little short, please.
Thanks, Uncle. We have received a lot of questions on the chat and also a few hand raises. I request everyone to keep your questions short so that we can get to answer as much questions as possible. I received a question from Akash Jain. If you can ask your question, please. Keep it short, please.
Sir, my question is, we have failed in terms of monetary expansion. Should not the government look for fiscal expansion on an immediate basis?
No, I think monetary policy has, I believe the RBI has done a lot in this current crisis, and it will also do a lot, because this RBI is different, and I have been writing about it. But the important point is that kindly note that in this current policy, monetary policy has to take a backseat and fiscal policy has to take over. Because I think, if you look at the history of the last 12 years, the monetary policy has now been, the rates are negative in most of the countries. But look into how the economies have actually started. How much time it took for the US to come out of this level, and for the last 9 to 10 years before the US economy started to do well. So monetary policy, I think, has ran its course. The fiscal policy has to be ramped up, and it's time that the government uses this opportunity to look into innovative ways, because the size of the financing of the package is humongous. It has to do expenditure rationalization, it has to do monetization of the deficit, it has to do government guarantees. Every combination has to be given, and my sincere suggestion is that there has to be a new COVID budget, so that there is no confusion that where from the money is coming or where from the money is going, and everything is transparent on a piece of paper, because we are living in unprecedented times and it calls for unprecedented action.
My second question is the credit.
Oh, sorry.
No, let there be somebody else ask
more
chance.
Yeah. One by one.
Do we have Ravi ji? He had a question.
Ravi? Yes. Can I
Go ahead.
So I have a question now. You know, the present looks very bleak, very bad. But we have also heard that a lot of Japanese companies and US companies and maybe some Koreans, they're all planning to shift their manufacturing bases from China to India. Now, what benefit China to some other country or maybe to their own respective countries? So how do you think this can benefit for the long term, maybe 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line?
I think that is one thing which I also mentioned when I mentioning the crisis to opportunity. I think this is an opportunity for us. So 17 to 18% we have share in manufacturing. We can easily push it up to 25% over the next 2 to 3 years. So if we get our things right. So I think this is a good option. But right now my immediate priority is for survival. And the survival, everybody is talking about lives and livelihood now. But I am very much concerned about the lives and livelihood after the lockdown has ended, when it ends, because people are having no money to feed themselves. So the trade-off, and the trade-off is very difficult. Trade-off is not now. Trade-off is also in the future when it's going to save lives, because the companies does not take this. How we are going to take the benefits of this manufacturing activity shifting to India?
Thank you.
Next one.
Agori uncle, do you have a question? You raised your hand.
Yeah. Mr. Ghosh, I want to know what we do about our pay bill. For now, this is the second month in continuation, and the government has not given any package or anything. No, 2-3 months, no industry will be able to pay its own pay bill. How do we go about?
I think that's that is absolutely correct. I think the option is that, as I've said in the course of the meeting, is that as countries like UK has done, a lot of countries are providing payroll support. So this is whereby you do, for example, for 7 days, the company takes up 2 days, the government takes 3 days, and you take up 2 days, the employee takes up 2 days. So one option is that out of 30 days, the company gives salary for a limited period of time, say 1/3 days. The 1/3 is given by the government, and the 1/3 is absorbed as a salary cut or salary absorptions by the employee itself. Because I think we have to come up with these options. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to ride through this storm. So I was hearing to someone that people are saying that if you want to exist, I mean, they have no money to pay their bills. So how the export sector, for example, so until and unless the package is not introduced to support this, and I am not sure the government is doing anything on this one in terms of a payroll support. But I think, and this is not a very difficult job, because you have all the GST returns. You know the GST returns, you know the taxes which they are paying, and on the basis of that, you know the employees which they are supporting. So you can always find out some sort of an employee-linked payroll support which can be linked to their GST filing. So I don't think that's required huge analytics, but my sense is that something has to be done on this front also. Otherwise, otherwise people will have to, if they want to stay in the job, as is happening in many other companies, they have to take a huge salary cut and continue. But I don't know how far it is going to continue like this one.
Thank you, sir. The next question we have is Abhishek Jain. You are on.
Yeah, Abhishek.
My question for you is, see, although interest moratorium has been offered by the government, okay, but there are a few industries which are working capital heavy. For example, steel distribution or bullion, where a lot of working capital is required for maintain the inventory, but the margins are very wafer thin. Okay, now for those businesses, last 1 month almost, we have been paying the interest. We have been suffering the interest cost. So only with a delay in the interest payment and not a waiver of interest, it's going to hit us very hard. So what can government offer us for that, or what should be, where should we be pitching for this?
No, I think the working capital in the March, there has been a significant jump, for example, from our bank in terms of the working capital and term loan. So basically, companies are now holding cash, and that is going to happen. So that is another challenge, because if the corporates will be holding cash, in that point of time, the credit growth actually could get diverted from the required person to the other person. So this is another problem which you have to face with. My sense is that in terms of the working capital limit, what you said is that I mean, the RBI possibly is looking into these options, and you may actually see some sort of things happening package. I mean, the RBI doing something on the moratorium in the June policy or after the June policy. I think that is one way of looking into the thing. But I think these are some of the things which the RBI is seriously considering.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have a question from Riddhi. Go ahead, Riddhi.
Hello, sir. I'm Riddhi. I wanted to just the question regarding, you tell me more about the impact if this is done. So my point of view is, what if we take the current account, people who have current account, and the government gives an incentive saying that we get 5 to 10% of the loan, of the turnover, the capital turnover of the company, and then then the bank ask the people to take back the loan in 40% installment or 2% installment with the interest like 5 to 6 months. So by this, we can inject the money back into the economy, and then banks can benefit with the interest rate.
I could not hear your point. I think there was some audio disturbances. So
Riddhi, if you can message your question, I'll ask on your behalf. In the meanwhile, the next question we have is from Hitesh Jain.
Yeah, Hitesh.
Yeah, my question is, which are the sectors which the government should look upon of after the pandemic crisis? Which are the sectors we people, can think of as an alternate business? I mean, which are the sectors which are going to boom in the next coming days?
Going to boom.
Yeah.
So I think the boom sectors are right now very difficult to say. Healthcare could be one of the segments. But apart from that, I don't think as of now we are thinking of, any sectors doing well. The other sectors, I think after the crisis is over, the education sector, there will be a lot of, because the sector is completely at a standstill. But as of now, I think in terms of the FMCG companies, if the rural demand, that is the only solace in this year, is that the rural demand stays well. If the rural demand stays well, I think the FMCG companies could actually, do a little better. But in terms of the companies as of now, if I look into them, I think it's a question more of survival. And I'm not looking into anything as of now in one sector which are doing well in the next 6 to 7 months, because to me, I think the scenario doesn't look that promising.
Yeah, next.
Thank you, sir. Next question we have is from Hasmukhji Gandhi.
Yeah, Hasmukhji, please carry on.
Yes, I'm opening this video. This Hasmukh Gandhi. Sir, at present, these fruits and vegetables are available plenty. It is at farm level or at harvest level, but it is not reaching to the consumer. It is from farm to fork. We have to ensure the whole supply chain that this material should reach to the consumer. Otherwise, this is perishable goods. It will destroy. And both the parties, no, the consumer will receive it, not the farmer will get the money. What the action has taken by the government, please, and ensure the speedy delivery to the farmers.
No, I think this is going to be a challenge, and I'll not be surprised, because if you look into the arrival at the wholesale market, that has actually declined by 40 to 50 times in terms of commodities like tomato, onion, and potato. If you just look into the ag market data, so that is one of the challenges. And my sense is that I think, if I have to play the devil's advocate over here, I think given the current scenario, given the current supply chain, my sense is that we could actually see a lot of these commodities, if they're not, could actually be wasted in the next 1 month or so. So we can have a situation where we have plentiful of vegetables, but the prices of food prices could see some sort of disturbances because of the fact that there will be, there have been already news in papers I have seen that the tomatoes people are actually destroying crops in terms of tomato and others. So I'll not be surprised that if there is some sort of an the destruction of these perishable commodities because they don't find their way into the market. So that's actually the irony of the country, because we have a food and stock which is 4 times more than what we require, but still we are not able to feed our people because we don't have a proper effective supply chain, which has also been severely impacted in the current scenario.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We'll take 1 or 2 more questions, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
the next question we have is from Udeshji Dasani. Please go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, Udeshji.
Udesh.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. There's you being from the banking industry and talking about the stimulus. I just need to ask that you said we'll be requiring a stimulus of somewhere around 8 to 10 lakh crores. Now, you have a fund from the bank that is unclaimed deposit with the bank. So, in this unprecedented circumstances, can there be a possible that the unclaimed deposits be used in some portion or whole or whatever maybe the government thinks for the stimulus to be given by the government?
See, these unclaimed deposits, if I understand, these deposits are used by RBI. That money is with the RBI, which is for investor education. And I don't think the size of the unclaimed deposits is significantly on the higher side. So LIC
and the bank.
No, that is with the unclaimed deposits are with the goes to the RBI. So there is, I think, more than 5 years of deposits which are unclaimed actually goes to the RBI, and the RBI uses this fund for investor education. And I believe that the size of the unclaimed deposits is not that significantly high. So I think if that route has to be undertaken, that has to be an arrangement between the RBI and the government in terms of how to claim the money, because the banks don't have any right on that money, because that money goes to the RBI for investor education. That actually is the RBI publishes this data in its report, and I think the amount is around 20,000-30,000 crore if I am not incorrect.
Okay.
Next.
Riddhi had asked a question. It was not audible at that time. She messaged. She is asking, why does the government not give incentive to current account holders to get a loan of around 5 to 10% of the capital turnover? In that way, the money can be injected back to the economy, and the banking sector can also get interest on it. This will help in creating the capital. So she wanted to know your views on this.
No, I think I have already said in the beginning in the meeting that the government needs to create a guarantee fund, and I think the guarantee fund and that is actually one of the demand from our banking sector, including in fact this proposal has been given by our bank chairman. So I think this is a good idea, but there has to be some sort of a guarantee fund. Otherwise, given the current risks, and that capital is not going to come to the banks. So if that is done, I think that a lot of this credit actually will start flowing to some of the sectors which it requires. Until and otherwise this is done, it will be difficult for, given the current risk perception, I don't think that the credit flow will be that adequate to meet the needs of the sectors. Because please remember that one of the sectors that is going to be significantly impacted after the crisis, that's why I told you at the beginning that India is going to be significantly impacted by this crisis and compared to the global financial one, because our service sector is 60%, is the fact that the retail sector is going to be significantly impacted. So if that is the case, if the retail sector is actually significantly impacted, I think the retail loans could be one of the next pain points of the bank. And that was the case after the global financial crisis also. So we have to be very careful in terms of the bank credit, because the banks are the only institution which can effectively financially intermediate at this point of time to tide over the crisis. And they has to be encouraged, as other countries are doing. For example, in Germany, in Singapore, most countries are actually creating up a credit guarantee fund to explore how the banks can help the economy. And I think we must do that also.
Yes, that is very important.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, next.
Next question we have is from Chirag.
Yeah, Chirag.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, sir. Sir, sir, I wanted to ask is that how it is going to impact the export in coming next quarter. So there are many export-oriented units, even in the SME sectors or MSME sectors, which are completely dependent on export units. Like they have been supplying to the big retail outlets, like the Walmarts in the US. So how would that affect the cash flow as well of those companies and the demand of those companies?
No, I think that is going to be a very big challenge. As I said to you, 60% of our exports are to these countries which are significantly impacted. And you can, and April has been a total loss out. So I think the export number and per month could be around 20-25 billion. So maybe it is around 23 billion. So that entire amount has been wiped out. May is also possibly going to be a washout. So if you take this number, around 50 to 60 billion exports already has taken a hit in the last 2 months. So now you 50 to 60 US billion. So basically, if you just multiply with the exchange rate say of 70, you can understand the amount of loss which could happen to the exports, which looks to be around 3.5 to 4 lakh crores only because of the last 2 months. So I think that is the amount of pain which some of the sectors has to take in terms of the loss in their export income, and this export income loss will be permanent in nature because there has been complete demand destruction in these markets. And the data will come out, I think the trade data will come out in a day or two. So once it comes out, have a look at this. But I think this is going to be a severe problem for the export sector also.
Okay, with that, I think now we are almost running out of time. So Naguriji, you were not there. I mean, your audio was muted at the beginning when you were to welcome the participant and introduce. So introduction part we have done. But
Yes.
you can say a few words for the participants.
Yes, I can say, provided I am unmuted.
No, you are unmuted. You are unmuted. We can hear you.
Okay. To thank first of all, Dr. Soumya Ghosh, who has highlighted all aspects of the economy where government has to work. Now we can only wait for the government to take action because industry is all ready to go. But the question is getting a package.
Yes.
I thank Ashok Ajmera ji, I thank Ravi Jain Saab, I thank Ajay Vora ji, I thank Kamlesh Sojetia ji, Nitin Tafria, and all participants who are from Indore or from outside who have joined and made this webinar a successful model.
So,
Thank you.
The vote of thanks was given to Mr. Nitin Dafaria. But Nitin, you can thank our guest speaker formally.
Jai Jinan, it's my privilege to propose vote of thanks on behalf of GITO Indore chapter and GITO Professional Forum. We are thankful to the speaker, Dr. Soumya Kanti Ghosh, on a very relevant topic in the present situation, that is Indian economy and fiscal monetary stimulus announced by Government of India and RBI. His talk was very appropriate on the subject and enhanced our knowledge as well as clarified our doubts during question answer session. Sir, from the bottom of the heart, we are grateful to you for your valuable presence through Zoom platform. We are also thankful to all the office bearers of GITO Indore chapter and GITO Professional Forum for their support. Last but not the least, a big thank you to all the GITO members who have participated. Without them, this program could not have been successful. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, Mr. Ghosh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Who came on my request. You have always been a big support to us. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And Sojatia ji for taking this initiative. You are always there for GITO. And yes, of course, our own, all office bearers of JPF. You are all a big support to me for organizing this conference webinar successfully. We will come with many more. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And you can all leave the meeting now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Especially Akash. We are thankful to Akash.
Yeah.
No,
Yes,
sir.
yes, yes,
It's
yes.
a pleasure.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes. Akash has done a wonderful job. Thank you, Akash. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Take care. Stay safe.
Okay, bye. Bye.